Welcome back to Hump Day. That does not involve either Paul or myself.
Or humping.
Yeah. Great,
Morning.
great. That's a weird intro.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you record this thing like 5 days a week all year long, I mean, you're gonna, there's gonna be some swings and some misses. That's all I'm saying.
I think that one's a miss. Speaking of misses, it's remember that post I said I was going to publish on Monday and I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's now live. I pushed it out. Yeah, right on. It's related to this thing.
Is it based to the disclosures in a recent novel by Brad Sams, as one headline recently called it?
I'll tell you what, though, and even better than that, one website was writing up something Brad Smith had done, and it was Brad Sams, the chief legal officer, whatever the heck his title is. I'm like, wow, when's that paycheck showing up?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
If I got paid like that guy did for 1 year, I could just retire. I don't even understand why people like that work.
yeah, I can. If my paycheck was at that level, I can tell you my blog post would be much more vulgar.
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
effing Office 365's down again. Like
Let me tell you how I really feel about this thing. Who gives it? Yeah.
it would be, be the Full Metal Jacket version of blogging, I think. It would be-
Yep.
So, anyways, you can go read that post. It's kind of about the Xbox stuff, a little bit of what I think the next gen architecture is going to be for that CPU. I think it's going to be Zen 2 with next gen AMD GPU goodness, which should surprise absolutely zero people who actually know what's inside of an Xbox because it's been AMD all the way up and down. So,
Right. Good.
yeah, it is good. You said you had something about Snapdragon or something?
I did. Actually, I've got an important message from one of our coworkers, so let me just deal with that first because
Because it is 11:03 a.m. What else would we be doing?
yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask you in question form because I think you were
Because why
the
not?
one that was you were the one that was on this.
Mm-hmm.
There was a certain drama around 1809 being delayed and one particular type of computer that it impacted directly because they were out in Best Buy but couldn't be supported. Do you recall the story?
I do.
And those computers were based on the Snapdragon 850 chipset, which had just come out at the time. They were announced, I think, back in August, and the first PCs showed up in October.
Yep.
And the only supported version of Windows that came with this thing was 1809. But 1809 was pulled, and then these systems were not getting any updates. Right. Okay. I'm making sure I understand this correctly. So I just got a Snapdragon 850 based computer today. The Lenovo Yoga C630, I think it's called. It's a nice computer, by the way. About $800 to $1,000, depending on configuration, somewhere in that time.
Not
on
not
par
cheap.
with previous.
Yeah.
Not cheap, but it includes a SIM card slot,
Okay.
so you can do the always connect the PC thing. 22 hours of battery life. Obviously, the big question is performance. Actually, there's another big question I have, Brad, because this thing will not download updates. So it actually arrived with 1803. And one of the updates, the update that it has now failed 4 times to install is the cumulative update from November. And it has installed 2 other updates related to Adobe Flash. So I guess those are okay. But it literally will not install. And I'm not saying it's related to that thing that you wrote about, but it kind of makes me wonder.
Oh, I'm trying to get an image here. This is
So I'm going to update I'm going to see if I have to update the drivers, I guess. That'll be the next thing I try. But I've been sitting here all morning trying to make this work. And was that a train crash or something? Nice.
Let's see if we can't make that.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's why you don't drink and drive.
Well, the reason why I chose this picture too, specifically this one, is I don't know the exact year, but it might be about 1803.
You're right.
Please do not write in and tell me when the train was invented or cameras. It was a joke. I understand that cameras. Yep.
Right. It's probably, it's like a steam-looking engine. I can't see the front
It
of it
is.
anymore. Yeah, it is literally like a coal-driven steam engine, I guess.
Yeah, and there's a child here with black lung and some other things.
Yep. Yep. Actually, that's a fully grown adult because of his black lung. That's as big as he ever got. Yeah, so I would place that in the very late 1800s, very, very early 1900s at the latest. But
Yeah.
yikes.
But that doesn't work with the joke, I guess, unless they were shipping 1893 or something.
1809. Okay, very good. Or 1803. Just as you were doing that, I brought up Lenovo has an app called Lenovo Vantage, which is their driver utility, and support app.
Yeah.
It's good, actually. It's better than some of the other ones. But for some reason, when I clicked to send usage statistics to them, come up with a screen that says, "Welcome. Looking for your user guide? We can help. Open File Explorer by typing Windows key plus E. Navigate to, and then like a path to find your user guide. Need additional help? Visit lenovo.com/support." Okay, that's great. That's fine. There's no way to get past this, though. There's no button like, got it, thanks. Like, that's all this app does. What the fuck? Okay, I give up. I don't know.
Here's a fun little insider thing I was going to write up at some point, but I just keep forgetting to do it. Your BIOS updates are eventually going to come through Windows Update.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that should surprise again 0 people. Microsoft pioneered this with the Surface brand, and they've gotten very good at it. And now all your driver or BIOS and driver updates are going to start coming through there thanks to a little thing called Spectre.
Yeah, that's the way it should work, frankly. Having to go to like different places to install things is one of the many things that makes Windows less than great these days. So that's good news.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some real aggressive modernization of Windows here real soon, like going ahead, right? There's a rumor of this Chrome thing, just like whatever, screw it, we're not going to do that. Drivers are coming into Windows Update, screw it, you're no longer going to have to really worry about updates. I think
you shouldn't have to.
No, you really shouldn't. And I think Microsoft is finally at the point where they're like, you know what, we love our partners, but they are screwing us over, and we're just going to do it.
They've known this for years. That's what Signature PC
this isn't
was.
new, but there's finally...
Before Signature PC, they had this thing called Velocity, which was a program that I think only Lenovo really embraced, where they were like, look, we'll work with you. We'll fine-tune the drivers. We'll make your system run as well as it can run. I think it was the early days of Windows. No, it might have been before Windows. It must have been Windows Vista. But yeah, it's like the joke about, the only problem with France is the French. It's like the only problem with Windows are the companies that give you the thing where you run Windows. Like, I mean, they're not really the only problem, but yeah, it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Well, it's even better than that. As one person inside the company put it, they said, Windows really is no longer a growth thing. We don't have to worry about making those people angry because they need us more than we need them, and we're going to make it so that it's better for the user, which is where it should have been the entire time. But I understand the politics of involved when it's 2003 and you're still growing and all that stuff, and you're just like, we just need to grow. And now they're like, okay, we need to make this thing as simple to use as possible for everybody.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so it'll be fun to watch. Other things happening today. There's the Outlook iOS design refresh is rolling out that will never hit a PC near you because I've been hoping for that for years, and here we are.
I like how they release something on iOS but not on Android or vice versa, depending on the day. It's just like I don't know. I have this vision of a roulette wheel. Like, what are we going to do now? Outlook for iOS. It's just okay.
Yeah. It's yeah, it is. It is what it is. So that's rolling out now. If you have it, great. If you don't, well, just hold on to your horses. And if you don't like it, good luck, because it's coming anyways.
Right.
We don't get the iOS does not give you the ability to run older versions of apps, unfortunately.
Yeah, or fortunately.
Yeah, I guess depending on the only thing I'm concerned about, which I'm assuming you can turn off, is that I don't use focused inbox, and there is a massive toggle at the top of the screen.
Oh no,
focus.
you could turn that on.
If you couldn't, then I would be upset. But
no, they're not going to afford it. That feature is actually very divisive. They would never do that. Are
you sure about that? You sure?
They're almost certainly not going to do that. Probably spin the wheel. I don't know.
Here's the other thing. Since we were talking yesterday about, well, I guess the past couple days, so you have Windows Lite, then you have this Chrome OS thing, or or Chromium for Edge thing. So nothing is really off the table anymore, right? I think that's kind of fair to say.
Yes.
So this is just me pure speculating at this point, but you have to wonder, especially with Windows Lite, what about Android apps? Why wouldn't they let them run?
Right.
Especially if they could make them run better than.
Well, let me ask you a question, and I don't know the answer to this. This is somebody probably will know the answer to this. In fact, I guess we could just look it up. But today, there are a variety of ways to run something that's basically Chrome OS. So it's sort of like the Chromium version of Chrome OS. Third parties that create these ISOs you can make to install it on your old PC or whatever. Do those things allow you to run Android apps, right?
Yeah.
Or do you need an official Chrome OS device like a Chromebook? I don't know. I like after the show, maybe I'll go look this up. But if that's possible, yeah. I mean, this is, remember, and you know this, but just for the benefit of people watching or listening to this, they may remember that the reason that Microsoft's bridge for Android, which was called what? I can't even remember anymore.
Astoria.
The reason that was canceled, and there were like dozens of people working on this, is that it worked too well.
Yep.
And the fear that management had was that this would obliterate any need for Microsoft to have its own app platform, because the app platform that Microsoft has, the Microsoft Store platform, at the time was based almost fully around mobile apps. And they felt like this would kill native apps like the UWP apps in Windows, which I think they were correct, I have to say. And look, there's some weirdness about this on Chrome OS. There's no doubt about it. I think we talked about that the other day. There would be similar weirdness on Windows.
Yep.
But my God, would that be amazing?
No, so let me throw this wrench into there. And this comes from us, by Mr. Walking Cat, or Haxwood, whatever you want to call him. After following my post to Windows Lite, he was able to do some digging. And he said Windows Lite is WebView-based Windows, and its web engine is Chromium. He said, so is it basically Chrome OS with UWP runtime?
UWP runtime, yeah. And that would give it the store app compatibility.
It would give it the store app. But if it's basically Chromium OS, the ability to run Android apps, granted, Microsoft may not enable it, but it wouldn't be a stretch.
This isn't far off what I said last week, which was a version of Linux that looks like Windows and runs Windows applications. Now, it doesn't run Windows desktop applications. I realize that's like the big 85% hole in this notion, but not thematically, but basically, it is what I described. Chromium, Chrome OS, is a light version of Linux. It has it's probably not exactly Windows, but it has a Microsoft-made new user interface. The Android app thing would make a ton of sense. And the reason is that Microsoft has so thoroughly embraced Android otherwise. They make a launcher for Android, right? It would kind of make sense to combine the launcher efforts with whatever the UX is for this Windows Lite thing, or whatever they're going to call it. Probably not Windows something, but whatever. Because you could have a consistency across the two. And running Android apps, that kind of eliminates a problem. Microsoft doesn't. There's one other thing Microsoft doesn't have to work on is like Office versions for, for Windows Mobile, frankly, or whatever they call it, UWP, whatever those apps are. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things we can kind of talk ourselves into.
I don't know if it's going to happen, and it would be. I think that would be a pretty big blow to their ego if it did, personally.
No, but you know what? We have to. And by we, I mean people like us who are kind of enthusiasts of the Microsoft stack, and also those people left within Microsoft who still have trouble seeing past the whole Satya Nadella era of we have to embrace everything. Like, this is kind of the point I was trying to make last week, was that there's this constituency within Microsoft that still feels like we're Microsoft. Like, we make these platforms. Like, we have to keep pushing forward. And if they don't like this app platform, we have to make a new app platform because our platforms really matter. And it's like, guys, your app platforms don't matter in the slightest, in the slightest. And what you need to be doing is embracing the open platforms that are out there, like progressive web apps, which, of course, they have to some degree. But what we haven't seen is a real major push to bring Microsoft's own apps to PWA form, right, and have them work elegantly across multiple platforms. I spent a good chunk of yesterday watching that Flutter Live event, which was the Google thing to do cross-platform development across Android and iOS. The web is kind of and by the way, eventually that's going to work on Mac OS, Windows, Linux too. So actually, that's where they're going. I think Microsoft needs to embrace the stuff that's working and stop with the ego part of it. I think this notion, it was like you said this, I think it was a Steve Ballmer, not that he invented it, but he came to that conclusion, this notion of a real leader is someone who knows when to get out of the way if they're just caught, if they're in the way, right? That is a sign of leadership. The misconception here is that the only way Microsoft can lead is to do everything themselves. And this applies very broadly to all the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch just how they approach this, because you can make a very easy argument that if they are a productivity company, they don't need to make the OS, and that's fine.
That's literally the thing I'm coming to. It's hard. I've been writing professionally about Microsoft since very late 1993, maybe, but certainly 1994. So we're talking like almost 25 years here. And my entire worldview of Microsoft has evolved very dramatically in that time frame. I hated this company. I hated Windows and saw it as the awful hack that it was back in the early 90s. I hated that it was popular. I didn't understand it. But it was Windows, and it was Windows 95 initially, and then Windows NT as well, and NT4 especially, that really turned my impression of the company around. Actually, it was Office 6, the version before Office 95, but it was really Windows that made it kind of happen for me. And professionally, my life has kind of circled around Windows ever since. It's just not sort of, it literally has. And I have a hard time with this too. I mean, this is one of those things, like, you can give advice and it's like easy, but it's hard to, take the same advice yourself. It's kind of like that. Like I'm telling people, I'm saying to Microsoft kind of globally, I'm saying to people who are enthusiasts, we need to get over this notion. And the truth is it's hard for me as well, because I still do see Windows as the be all end all.
Sure. And I don't think someone's going to listen to this and think saying Windows is dead. It's absolutely not. It's in the enterprise and the professional user. It is absolutely going to live on, because we could not do what we're doing right now without Windows 10. If this would not work, I don't think on a Mac, at least not very easily.
Yeah. I've said this before, and I've said this kind of cynically, but one of the things that's really saved Windows as it's kind of declined, or as Microsoft's attention has been pushed elsewhere, is that there are no viable alternatives, not for what I do and not for what we do. And it's not just because we write about Microsoft, primarily. We obviously write about all kinds of personal technology, but I literally, since I bought in 2001, I bought an iBook specifically so I could test Mac OS 10. Before and since then, I've consistently had Linux computers. I just put Elementary OS on a computer last weekend, coincidentally, but I've always looked at the alternatives. When the iPad Pro came out, I bought one so I could see if this thing made any sense, and it doesn't. I've looked at Chromebooks of all kinds. I feel like that's finally starting to get there. Back in the day, I did goofy things like experiment with writing articles on it was a PDA of some kind, but it was attached to a little keyboard, and I was writing on the plane, I remember, and the plane jiggled, and the little thing disconnected because it wasn't physically connected. It was kind of like an IR thing, and I lost the article because it hadn't auto-saved or whatever. And I mean, I've been doing this my whole professional life. Yeah. I have never once been like, yep, this is better than Windows. And it's not just familiarity. People always say that. On the Mac, it's the keyboard thing. Keyboard shortcuts are inconsistent. In Windows, they're everywhere. If you go to any dialog box in Windows, any window, you can hit Tab and go through all of the controls in the window. If you do that on a Mac, you can do it on some of them. So if you can kind of imagine like a file save as dialog, where you can type the name and then get the locations up above there. Actually, well, you can type the name and then you can hit OK or cancel. Those things are in the Z order, they call that. The little box underneath it that's a check mark that says, hey, always do this, it's not in the Z order. So if you want to check that thing, you got to pick up the mouse, or put your hand on the touchpad and go click it like it's 1983, like it's crazy, and those kind of things, to me, have saved through no fault of Microsoft's. The fact that these other things are in their own way either terrible or just fall short somewhere, it has totally saved Windows.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. I mean, I hope it doesn't go anywhere. It's just its use case is just going to get it more defined, if you will. Right now, it's a catch-all for everything, and going forward, it's going to be more of just a productivity workhorse OS.
Yeah, I mean, I know, we'll hear from people who get work done on an iPad. I don't think those people work hard enough, but, whatever. I know you can do email and web browsing and basic writing and things like that. Of course you can. Chromebooks, even better, no doubt about it. But there is this kind of a versatility and, full-featured, not performance, but full-featured functionality kind of aspect to Windows that is certainly present on the Mac to some degree, and I don't think it is on Linux, mostly because of apps. But, web apps are going to change things. Mobile app support on desktop systems like we see in Chrome OS and Android. These things are game changers, They're adding iOS apps to the Mac. Why do you think they're doing that? Because they, too, have an app store that never took off. And they have an app store on the mobile side that is going gangbusters. Let's do some math here. What should we do? It makes sense.
Yep.
So Microsoft's role, we'll see. But yeah, it's the Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times. And suddenly, finally, we kind of do.
Yeah, we do. You got anything else for today, Mr. Threat? Whoops.
The thing I wanted to ask you about. Oh, I wrote a thing about Markdown today, finally. I get a lot of questions from people about what I write with and why, and what is this thing? And I know you've looked at MarkPad, but I can't remember. What do you write with now? Like what?
I write in a very simple app called Appy Text, and it's pretty much just a plain text editor with tabbing and spell check.
Yeah. So right, and it's Appy Text. No, it's a store app. Does it support? You don't do like a side-by-side view. You're kind of doing like a rich text edit thing. So if you want to bold something, it's Control B and it works fine, and you can add hyperlinks and stuff. And that's all you need, right? Because you're writing.
I don't even add hyperlinks. My workflow is I write in that, then I paste it into WordPress.
Yep.
And then I do all the formatting, and then I proofread it, and then I hit publish.
Okay. Yeah. So I use Markdown Pad too, but it also offers basic spell checking in the app. It does side-by-side view, so it's like plain text that I write in, but then the formatted text is on the right. The key aspect, I think, of anything you write in, or for us, because we publish to the web, is you have to be able to paste it into WordPad and have it not be garbage. Right? It has to come through as cleanly as possible. And I've looked at some things that don't do that. You can look at the code, and it's like this crazy CSS formatting on every single paragraph, and it's garbage. So I don't know. Anyway, I was just kind of writing about that. It's very clear from the early feedback that people are still confused by this. But
it's one of those things you don't need it, and most people probably do not need Markdown. Most people probably do not, unless you're publishing on the web.
I would say this, that as the world evolves and as we move to these kind of what I would call non-traditional computing devices, some Markdown Pad is just we call it a format. It's not really a format, but it's a markup language like XML or CSS. I'm sorry, or XML or HTML, and it's designed to be output to the web, right? That's the point of it.
Yep.
And so if you have a good editor, like a modern editor, like Appy Text or that Typora application that I recommended in the article, what it appears to be is a minimalist, rich text editor. And so you can make headings, you can do formatting like bold and italics, add hyperlinks, and you can save the thing. It saves in Markdown format. You don't have to worry about that. It's just it's a file. But the beauty of Markdown is that it's not proprietary. It's not stuck to a certain application or platform. Can be read by anything. It's literally just plain text. You don't have to be a programmer, although you can use it that way, like I kind of do, actually. I write in code in essence, like I actually write codes to do things. But I think the way the world has evolved, like Word is a great example of something like Microsoft Outlook, where it's like this real legacy program from the past. It's humongous. It does everything. And most people don't need everything, And I think that this kind of thing, it's terrible in a way. We have to call it Markdown because it makes it sound complicated or, technical. But honestly, like these modern editors, it's basically just like a better version of Notepad. It's Notepad with basic styling. I'm not sure what to call that. Formatting capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I think this kind of thing, whether it's Apitex like you're using or Typora, whatever, and there's a bunch of stuff on the Mac and iOS side, Bear and whatever.
Yep.
I can't remember the names of all these things, but I think this speaks to a new generation of productivity tools that are simpler, have nice minimalist designs, are open, and are not locked in to a platform. They're not big and heavy like Word. Not that there's anything wrong with Word, and I know some people need it. But I don't know.
Sure.
Look, we're writers.
Yeah, we don't.
I mean, the fact that we're not using Microsoft Word is astonishing.
Right. That's why they build out Teams and everything else, is because Word is not a sticky thing for you to pay for Office 365.
Yeah, I mean, something like Google Docs is probably fine for most people. By the way, just on a quick thing on that note, I will say, when I edited your book, I had to do it in Google Docs, and I had to use Google Docs version of the reviewing feature where I'm marking up the document essentially with my edits, and you kind of go back later and you say yes or no to each one of them, and it can be really messy because your text still stays there. It's crossed out if I replaced it, and my new text is in a different color, and it's like a spaghetti disaster of different colors and things. I will say this. Google Docs is not as sophisticated as Microsoft Word with regards to this capability. And this is going to be a little hard to explain, but the big problem I had again and again and again was there was a sentence maybe I wanted to reorder. And so I deleted, let's say, 3 or 4 words in a row. And that causes like a green line to go through it. And then I started typing what I wanted to type as the replacement. It would put my typed replacement inside of the thing that I already marked as deleted. So it would appear green and crossed out.
Yep. It was a rainbow.
And it's like, it's impossible for me to know if you'll see it correctly or if it's just going to be yet another bit of crossed out text. It's the stupidest, most obvious problem. And it's just something Word handles great. I don't know.
Well, there you go. Ending on a high note.
All
right, folks. Well, that wraps it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow on Thursday, and have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday.